Hi, it's Miss Bernhardt, and let's continue our study of ecology by considering how matter cycles through ecosystems. You may remember in our last discussion that only 10% of the energy in each trophic level is passed on to the next. However, all of the matter cycles between the biotic and abiotic components of our ecosystem. You might be wondering why I'm drawing a periodic table here, but remember that over 96% of living things are composed of four key elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These are those elements that, along with phosphorus and sulfur, make up the four classes of macromolecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We're going to be looking at four key cycles here: the carbon, water, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles. You can see the elements involved here on the periodic table: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, found in the compound water, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Let's take a look at the carbon cycle. This cycle is most closely related to the transfer of energy through the ecosystem. It relies on four key processes: photosynthesis, cellular respiration, decomposition, and combustion. First, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going to enter the plant through stomata, tiny pores in the leaves. Water enters the plant through root hairs in the soil and is carried through xylem vessels to the leaves. Chloroplasts in the cells of the leaf are going to fix the carbon into organic compounds in the process of photosynthesis. This releases oxygen gas into the atmosphere as a waste product. If animals consume glucose or other carbohydrates, or they consume animals in higher trophic levels, they take in these carbohydrates and oxygen, and after digestion, they use the mitochondria in their cells to convert the chemical energy stored in the bonds of glucose into ATP, cell energy. In this process of cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water are released as waste products, returning the carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Note that while I do not have it shown on this diagram, plants also undergo cellular respiration. After all, why else would it be advantageous for plants to make their sugar? When plants and animals die, bacteria of decay or other detritivores break them down in the process of decomposition. Decomposition returns stored organic compounds back into the atmosphere. Long ago, fossilized plant parts were converted into fossil fuels. Humans discovered the stored energy in these fuels and depend on them for electrical power, for industry, and for transportation. The process of combustion combines these fuels with oxygen and returns the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Scientists are concerned that the increase of the stored carbon into carbon dioxide enhances the greenhouse effect and is a major contributor to climate change. We'll take a closer look at this process later. Now let's take a look at the water cycle. Water is essential to all organisms, and its availability influences the rate of many ecosystem processes, including primary productivity and the decomposition we mentioned in the water cycle. Solar energy drives this cycle by evaporating liquid water into water vapor in the atmosphere. Transpiration in land plants also moves huge quantities of water from the soil to the atmosphere. Water vapor is condensed into clouds, and liquid water is returned to the soil through the process of precipitation. Surface water and groundwater can then move back to bodies of water, completing the cycle. Next, let's take a look at the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is a part of nucleic acids like DNA and RNA, and it is found in amino acids and proteins. Did you know that plants can only use nitrogen in organic forms like amino acids, and two inorganic forms, ammonium and nitrate? Bacteria can use ammonium, nitrate, and nitrites. But animals can only use organic forms of nitrogen. So the role of bacteria in the nitrogen cycle is extremely important. 80% of our atmosphere is diatomic nitrogen gas. This is a form no plants or animals can use. Lightning strikes can convert nitrogen gas to ammonium, but only nitrogen-fixing bacteria can convert nitrogen into a form plants can use. Leguminous plants, such as soybeans, have root nodules that contain nitrogen-fixing bacteria. These bacteria are also found free-living in the soil as well. When conditions are right, nitrogen-fixing bacteria convert nitrogen gas into ammonium, which is NH4+. Other soil bacteria, called nitrifying bacteria, convert ammonium into nitrites and then nitrates in a process called nitrification. Now that the nitrogen is in a form plants can use, the plants will take in the nitrates, or the legumes will take in the ammonium through the roots, and they'll assimilate it into their cells, making amino acids and proteins. As the plants are eaten by animals and the food chain continues, the nitrogen is passed from one organism to the next. This is consumption. Animal waste contain nitrogen, and when plants or animals die, decomposers like fungi or bacteria these decomposers will break down their bodies, and nitrogen is returned to the soil in a form usable by plants. There are also bacteria in the soil called denitrifying bacteria. Under certain conditions, they will convert nitrates in the soil to the atmospheric form of nitrogen, N2. As you can see, the nitrogen cycle has a number of steps involving bacteria. Be sure you make note of the importance of bacteria in this cycle. The final cycle we're going to study is the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is found in all nucleic acids and ATP. The primary form we see phosphorus in cells is phosphate. When phosphate is in the soil, it can enter the plant roots and become assimilated into the plant cells. When animals eat plants or other animals, the phosphate is passed from one organism to the next. When the organisms decay, decomposers like fungi, bacteria, return the phosphate to the soil. The phosphate can leach from the soil into the ocean or bodies of water. It can pass through aquatic food chains, or it can form sediments on the ocean floor. Upwelling and weathering of rocks is also a component of this cycle. Note that unlike other cycles, there is no gaseous form of phosphorus in the atmosphere. I hope that's helpful.